think we have noticed a sort of distinct uptick in interest in the region. So we're getting a lot more requests for proposals. We're seeing a lot more people, looking at deals, and some of those are actually converting into due diligence processes and real deals. So I think at the moment we're quite optimistic generally in the region about M&A. So the sectors that people are looking at the moment are healthcare. They're looking at what we call TMT, telecoms, media and technology. So there's a lot of interest in that area, and obviously there's also quite a lot of movement in the financial institution sector. In Hungary in particular, obviously there are quite specific circumstances driving M&A in certain sectors like the energy sector, and we would expect to see some movement on the financial institution sector as well at some point in the future as people rationalise their portfolios, maybe sell a portfolio or sell non-performing loans. In the sort of renewed interest that we've seen in the region, we are seeing interest also from larger private equity funds, and some sort of more strategic, more important strategic investors, and that's partly because some larger assets are coming to the market in Slovenia and Serbia and so on. So there's definitely I think an increased interest from people who maybe haven't been looking so much at the region up until now. I think in Hungary again, the circumstances are quite specific. So you're seeing rationalisation of the energy market with the European energy majors. So that's quite specific. But I think you will see. I think Hungary still has a lot of opportunities in a number of other areas, perhaps in the less regulated areas, but there still are a number of opportunities there, and we are seeing our multinational clients as well as domestic clients coming to have a look at Hungarian investment. There are cases, of course, of some funds saying they don't really look at Hungary at the moment, so there are some downsides, but people are still looking. I think what is interesting, which we haven't mentioned earlier, is that there are also some quite encouraging signs of sort of Hungarian champions starting to look outside the borders and make acquisitions outside of Hungary, which is also extremely interesting for us. I think transactions are definitely more challenging, not just now, but over the last few years. I think during the boom times, you'd call an auction, lots of people would turn up and they wouldn't want to mark up the documents too much for fear of rocking the boat. So people were less challenging in their approaches to deals. I think nowadays, after so many years of troubles and complications, you do see when you're looking at transactions that there are lots of problems to solve, lots of things to fix. There are things that have gone wrong. Also, during troubled times, people might have been erred on the wrong side perhaps of how they've operated in terms of competition, for example. So you might find there are more difficult regulatory issues. So even when you're looking at a company and you're doing the due diligence, we see many more problems than we used to. But in addition to that, when you're even if you get to the stage of trying to close a transaction, the regulators tend to be much more. They tend to examine transactions a lot more because many of the transactions are consolidations of strategic players. Then that consolidation also makes the regulatory environment and getting to closing more challenging. So what you're finding is on one side, although the auction environment is very difficult and there are not so many buyers turning up as there used to be, and there are so many issues, at the same time the sellers are still having to be a bit picky and saying, well, which buyer is going to have the least problems in terms of a regulatory closing, which buyer is going to have the least problems in terms of securing finance. So you've got this tension on the one side of much more complicated and difficult deals to close, but at the same time trying to find someone who's going to be the easiest person to close with. And I think that's making deals quite challenging, but again, it makes them interesting too.